Module 1, Week 1. We begin the course. I trust that you would have been oriented to the course syllabus as well as expectations for the next 4 weeks as we engage the topic of migrant and refugee health. For Week 1 specifically, we will engage the situation analysis, exploring definitions, distribution, and determinants of refugees and migrants as well as their health context. In doing so, we must ensure that we do distinguish between refugees and migrant health as well, and explore the full spectrum of this burden throughout various regions around the world. The international community is very much engaged on this topic of refugee and migrant health. The United Nations, as part of its 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals, have specified health needs of refugees and migrants as a priority area. The World Health Organization, in its 140th session in 2017, requested for the development of frameworks of priorities specific to promoting the health and interest of refugees and migrants. And the World Health Assembly endorsed Resolution 70.15, which aims to strengthen international cooperation regarding coordinating efforts towards refugees and migrants. By definition, a migrant, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, is someone who makes a conscious decision, a voluntary choice, to leave their country of origin and who, when they wish to, can return to their place of origin. So this is a voluntary, conscious choice, which is defined as a migrant. For refugees, the United Nations Refugee Convention suggests that conditions determines if someone is considered a refugee, and these conditions include owing to well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership, any particular social affiliation, political opinions, is outside of the country or region of the nationality, and these persons are unwilling, unable, owing to fear, to return to the protection of their home region or home country. So in the context of migrants, we see that as a voluntary activity and the opportunity to return. In the case of refugees, as a result of fear and concern for persecution, they are outside of their region or country of origin, and there is difficulty in returning to their home country or region. As it relates to overall refugee and migrant health, well, the definition of health suggests that health is a state of physical, mental, and social well-being. So, for refugee and migrant health, health is also concerned with the physical, mental, and social well-being of persons, especially in terms of how these principles of health change from the country of origin to their host and destination country as well. By right, individuals have afforded the opportunity to attain the highest standard of health. This also extends to persons who are considered as migrants and refugees. There are over 1 billion people currently in our world that subscribes to the characteristics and definitions of being a migrant or a refugee. This significant amount of individuals establishes the fact that migrants and refugees are quantifiable issue, and the health burdens that they succumb to are also that of a population health concern as well. Around the world, every single region on this planet includes persons that are migrants or refugees. This is a globally ubiquitous issue. In some subregions, including the European region, we see, for example, the recent experience of Syrian refugees migrating into Western Europe, and different countries serving as intermediate and final host countries. In terms of the top 10 countries that host refugees around the world, these countries are primarily in Africa and the Middle East. A lot of these refugees are able to access these host countries by virtue of travel across land, because it's more difficult for traveling across the seas and oceans, and certainly through air travel as well. So through land movement, they are able to access some alternative locations for abode. In the United States, North America, they tend to receive some refugees from around the world. And in the US context, we see refugees from Iraq, from Bhutan, from Cuba, from Burma or Myanmar, Somalia as examples, and different refugees are assimilated into different regions within the United States. What determines an individual to become a migrant or refugee? Well, by virtue of the fact that a migrant can choose to relocate, opportunities, sometimes education opportunities, career opportunities, that can be driving factors for persons to choose to migrate. What about refugees? If they are unsafe, being persecuted, then there may be issues of being victims of civil unrest, war, trafficking, displacement. So it's a mix of determinants which results in persons being migrants or refugees. In terms of the health status of these individuals, the act of relocation, that can be a socially challenging experience and have certainly mental implications as well. So mental health is actually a priority area as we engage in migrant and refugee health. But there are also implications in terms of policies, governance structures that either encourage or limit the movements of persons. Some countries have restricted migration policies, which reduces the predisposition of persons to migrate into those countries or regions, while other countries have more open policies, and open policies tend to be more attractive for relocation of refugees and migrants. Bear in mind, though, that for some of these migrants, not all, but for some, these persons come from lower socioeconomic income regions, also with lower education status and limitations with regards to language use and ability to communicate in their host destination countries. So there are a lot of dynamics as it relates to how the activities of daily living is compromised for a refugee and or a migrant. Living conditions, working conditions are also deprived, whether it's in their origin country or even in the countries that they relocate to, because they may be relocating to countries that may be considered developed countries, but the areas that they are settled and located in may be some of the least habitable areas in terms of the countries that we are dealing with. So as we discuss the determinants of migrants, we must consider the different phases and stages of a refugee or migrant. There's always the place of origin, where they came from. There are some pre-migratory events that has to occur, whether it's violence, conflict on the part of refugees especially, or the issues of a lack of opportunity or availability for migrants in particular. The origin then helps to determine what will be the destination, depending on linkages, depending on established routes, Sometimes in destination or host countries that already have migrants from the country of origin, that tends to be more of an open path towards migration. Then we have the phase of travel and transit. And that travel transit can be a process that is very stressful, can also be disadvantageous to health as well. The modes of travel are different, whether it's through land, whether it's through the sea, whether it's through air, the time frame it takes. And a lot of this travel includes mass travel, movements of people in large numbers, highly densely packed communities in motion. Then we have the place of destination, and the destination will have variations in social, cultural norms and values, differences in language, differences in education systems, different working and living conditions, which can also impact the health and well-being of migrants and refugees. And for the most part, migrants have the option to return, refugees a bit less, unless there are social, cultural, and political changes occurring at the place of origin. The return may also have some health implications. As they return to their country of origin, there may be some stress, anxiety, conflict, a loss of opportunities, which can also impact their health and well-being. So different phases in the life cycle of a refugee and a migrant, from the place of origin to the travel, the destination, possibly even the return. There are health issues involved in each and every one of these phases. So this is it for Module 1, as we described who is a migrant, a refugee. What are some of the considerations as it relates to their health? Then we discuss some of the distribution factors involved in global refugee and migrant patterns, and introduced some determinants as to what are the predisposing factors that decides countries, regions to be considered as migrant, refugee-prone countries and regions as well. For week 1, we will also be speaking with someone who is considered a refugee, engage in the experiences of a refugee personally, and also apply these principles of determinants, of pathways, of health issues on that particular refugee experience as well. So do enjoy week 1 activities, and we look forward to meeting you once again in week 2 for module 2. It's goodbye for now.